So today's slide is on engineering ethics, and I'm going to place some material, some reading material. In fact, already, just so that you know, we've already got a chapter for engineering ethics. But these slides are basically a summary, because remember, towards my side of the course, the professional engineering side of the course, I don't get many lectures. I lose about 3 or 4 lectures to the guest engineers who come in, and then I lose 1 more to short test number 2. So in the end, I'm only giving you about 4 or 5 lectures, 4 or 5 hours, which I get to spend with you, because I lose some to the professional engineers who come in. So that is the reason why we quickly go through the slides, but in the end, I ask you to go through the slides again in your free time, and also go through the chapter, right? The chapter. This side of the course is very theoretical in nature. You need to go through the chapter to develop an understanding of what's happening, right? That's why I put a chapter on safety there, right? That will help you. And very shortly, I'll put on some more chapters which you can read. And it's very simple reading. It's not like reading a mathematical textbook or reading a book on thermofluids or reading a book on digital signal processing. That's very difficult reading because you have to really comprehend. Over here, it's more like nighttime reading. You'll be easily able to understand what's happening. All right, guys. So, let's come here. This again, most of these slides were developed by Dr. David Etchison. And because they're good, I don't like to reinvent the wheel. What I do is I just supplement. So if I find some relevant chapter or relevant video, I place that online, all right? Okay, so engineering ethics. This is based on an IPENS document. All right, now when you graduate, you will have your company will give you a business card. And also when you write letters or when you sign off on certain documents, beside your name, you will place your credentials. So I think your credentials will be Bachelor of Engineering, BEng, the first one, right? And also, because you would be a member of Fiji Institute of Engineers, which by the way is due this Thursday, right? Remember, you have to fill your form out and you have to bring your subscription. If you have a problem with the subscription, you have to write an exemption. You can't just turn up to my office and say, sorry, I can't pay. I understand. If you have some financial problems and you're not able to pay, or if you want to pay, let's say, next week, or pay in exam week, that's perfectly fine. But if you've got a problem and you don't want to pay, you want to only submit the form, that's okay as well, so long as you write to me requesting for an exemption. You've got to learn how to write exemptions. All right. Now, so because you'll be a member of FIE, besides your name, you will place your credentials, which is a Bachelor of Engineering. That's your merit-based credential. Then you will place membership of organization. So if you look at Dr. David's thing, he started off BEng, MEng, PhD. Those are his competency-based standards. Remember, we did this in one of the earlier things. Then can you see it says CEng and MI-MECI. Right? It says CEng and MI-MECI. CEng means Chartered Engineer, right? Chartered Engineer belonging to who? Belonging to, I think it was the Engineering Council. He was from the UK. And MI-MECI, that's Mechanical Engineer, Institute of Mechanical Engineer, right? Member, M stands for M, I is Institute of Mechanical Engineers. That's again a UK-based organization. So in the end, you may, let us say next year, this year, definitely we want to get you to become a student member. So you'll write a student member of FIE. That's going to go on your CV under a section. You know how you have in your CV, there's a section for education, for your educational qualifications. So over there you put your Form 7 and your Bachelor of Engineering, what was your final year project, any publications or any conferences you attended, right? Okay, no, sorry, your final year project, your grades or something like that, any other short course which you may have done. Then the next place is you place membership of professional organizations. So you would be a student member. And next year when you graduate, you'll upgrade your membership to becoming a graduate member, right? Then thereafter you will place workshops attended. So workshops attended, if FIE invites you to any workshop, you place that in your CV. The idea is for me to help you to build your CV in a way such that your employer finds you to be a viable and attractive person to be absorbed into their organization. All right. So if you look at it, he's placed his credentials, which is education credentials, right? B-Eng, M-Eng, PhD. Then C-Eng and MI-MECE are the credentials for membership. Next year after graduation, if you say, hey, FIE is not enough, I need to become a member of IEEE and I need to become a member of, let us say, IPENS, you can go ahead and do that. You can go and become members of other organizations as well. You can hold multiple membership. Like this guy here, Dr. David, he had 2 membership from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers. And by the way, you can also apply to become a member of a UK-based organization or a New Zealand, Australia-based organization. What that will allow you is if your company is doing some tender work in the UK or Australia or wherever it is, that allows you access to those areas. All right? It's very important for engineers to have this. All right. Okay. So this, they call it the postnomials, why I have titles. Okay. So this is to, the idea is to be registered in a professional body. Being registered or licensed professional engineer in USA is an important distinction and can enhance your career options. Right? Many jobs require you to have, as I mentioned, it requires you to have those memberships in order to win the tenders. Although you may never need to be registered for legal reasons, nobody can force you, just like I cannot force you to pay your $20. Okay, by the way, that's the other catch. All these memberships cost money. They will never be free. Right? Because those organizations like FIE, IPENS, IEOST, the Engineering Council in New Zealand, in the UK, IMECE, ELEC-E, right? All these organizations, they are run from membership subscription. So for example, right now you're a student, your fees is what, $20? Right? That's your fees, $20. For those guys who are a bit, who go to graduate membership, I think it becomes $200, right? But it's worth it because that $200, after you start working, that's like a week's pay for you or maybe half a week's pay, right? Okay? Sorry? All right, if you say so. Okay, all right, okay, all right. That quickly pays off, but the amount of tenders and jobs and employment, all that you win, that will pay off. So all these organizations, you have to pay fees, right? Now nobody can force you, because you have to pay fees, nobody can say, no, you must register. No, there's no legal way for me or for the engineering body in Fiji to force you to become a member. There's no, it's all voluntary membership. Right? Right? Okay? But if somebody steals, if you know your friend, he did not become a student member, and he goes and lists that in his CV, right? That he can be prosecuted. FIE and also that company can fire him. If you if you are not a member, and you go and place in your CV that you are a member of an organization, especially a professional body. This is not some membership of some sports club or karate or, okay, or some grog club or something like that, right? Grog masters, okay. But this is not some simple organization. This is a professional body. There's no professional grog masters body, okay? So, this is a professional body. So, if you place in your CV, in your business card, that you're a member and you're not a member, or if you forgot to pay the subscription, your membership has lapsed, you will be in trouble. You will get caught eventually, right? Because all members, they know each other because they're always networking. Remember, that's another key term. Networking is a key element of our trade, right? We've got to network. Remember, all the engineers have said this. When you met with Dan, when Daniel Wood, he gave his guest lecture, when Vuate gave his guest lecture, they all mentioned these things, that you must network. right? You must network. All right. Now, it's a, CPEng, that's the particular title. In Fiji, do you guys know what is the title given to a professional member? Right, look that up. Remember, we've already done FIE already, right? So basically, when you become a member of this organization, what holds you? Why is it so important? Because then the code of conduct of that organization is tying you down. The code of conduct for that organization. So when you become a member of FIE, the code of ethics or the code of conduct for that organization ties you down, right? And you will be, if there's some problem, you can be disciplined. You can be disciplined along those lines, right? Remember, we are a professional, right? A professional adheres to certain levels of codes of ethics, codes of conduct, codes of standards of performance. All right. I'm just making a summary. I'm not reading from this. Let me just stop here for 1 second, and I want to show you. Okay, this was the reading on the chapter. If you come down here, the FIE Code of Ethics. There we go. All right. Okay, so make sure you go through this. What are the values? That's protection of life, professionalism, integrity, competence, commitment to community well-being, sustainable management and care for the environment, sustainable engineering knowledge, sustaining engineering knowledge, right? The guidelines. So if anything, these are only 6 pages, guys. 6 pages. If you look at it really, it's more like 5.25 page, right? I would like you, right, to read through this. So remember how I said certain topics within my 5 or 7, 6, how many lectures have I taken you? I think only 6 lectures, right? Certain topics I said we'll put it as A grade, meaning high top priority, right? This is A grade, right? The code of conduct of FIE, this chapter on ethics and morality, this is A grade. If you could just note that down in your exercise book, right? You've got to read that. And guys, what I suggest is don't read it all towards the end. Start reading. This is more like relaxed kind of type of reading. It's not too difficult. And I don't expect you to print everything out. We want to save the environment. What you could do is you could download it onto your mobile phone. Make sure you have how many of you guys know about a blue light filter? Have you heard of something called a blue light filter? Okay. So blue light filter is basically terminology used. If you use your mobile phone at night time, in the daytime it's okay. At night time, because it's light shining, you're looking into light. So if anybody looks at light, if you can look up and look at the tube light, you'll see that your eyes become blurry. Your eyes cannot take that much light. So when you look at a mobile phone during the evening, that's you staring at some light. So of course you've got to do some reading, or if you want to browse Facebook or whatever you want to do. A good thing to do is to install a blue light filter. What that does is it dims your mobile phone and it gets rid of some of the ultraviolet rays, and it becomes easier on your eyes. All right? Okay? So, yeah. All right. So, that's what I would suggest. Don't read it all one go. Try and start reading it now. We're in week 14. By the way, is your exam timetable been announced yet? Not yet, eh? All right. Okay. Okay. So, there we go, guys. So this is A-grade material. Now let's come back to the slides. The 5 ethical values, and I've just read it. IPENs and FIE, they're pretty much the same thing, because remember, back in the 1960s or 70s when FIE was set up, 1970s, yeah, in the 70s, when FIE was started, it was IPENs who came, and a lot of overseas engineers came in. In fact, and I look forward to seeing you at the next FIE function. All right? Don't get drunk. They get free drinks, but they have free drinks and free food. But apart from that, you'll see a lot of people who are not originally from Fiji. You'll meet a lot of people, a lot of New Zealanders, a lot of Australians, a lot of British engineers in FIE, right? Because a lot of engineers used to come to Fiji to work on. Right now we've got a lot of other contractors coming in, but originally all these roads, all these, let's say the Suva to Lotoka or Nendi road, it used to be gravel. In the 1960s it used to be a dirt road, right? I don't know if you've seen pictures of this, right? And even so they had British engineers come in, New Zealand, Australian engineers come in and do that road up. Not only the engineers, but the contractors as well, right? Now, similarly, the road going from Nasori all the way till Reki, that used to be all dirt road. It used to be gravel road, right? Okay? And that just got built recently. It was Chinese contractors, right? But the contractors were Chinese, but the engineers were American. Let me show you who the engineers are. This is an important kind of thing, right? Okay, it's MWH. How many of you have heard this, guys? Heard of these guys? I'm not sure where these guys' headquarters are. It's either British or American, MWH. So they were the engineers. You see, there's a difference between the contractor, there's a difference between the contractor and the engineer. The engineer is the guy who designs, does all the calculations. The contractor is the guy who builds, is the company who builds. The engineer, at every stage of the construction, they go and check and they sign off. Let's say if it's a road, is the first layer, is it dug up correctly? Is the drainage done properly? Then they sign off, okay, clear, to move to the next round, to the next phase of construction. Then they sign off. So there may be 5 phases, all right? So the engineer signs off on the construction. The construction guys are different. Construction guys are just laborers, okay? They're just laborers, cheap labor to build it, cheap and quick labor to build it as quickly as possible, right? But the engineers are the guys who take responsibility. Because if the construction guy makes a mistake, or let's say he cheats in this building and he puts a thin rod instead of an iron rod, instead of a thicker gauge iron rod, right? The engineer catches that and corrects it. He says, sorry, hey, you made a mistake here. He said, remove it. Engineer can order something to be destroyed, right? Let's say if in phase 2 there was a mistake, the engineer can order the contractor to say, okay, I need you to remove this. This is unacceptable. Demolish and rebuild. He can do that, right? Because in the end, if the engineer passes it, if he passes the job, right, later on, later on, something goes wrong, who will get sued? Will it be the contractor or the engineer? It's the engineer who will face the problem. All right, so let's come back here. So these are the 5 values. It's exactly the same as FIE. I just showed you guys that, right? So, because why is it the same as FIE? Well, because a lot of the FIE people came around to set up our, a lot of IPENS people came around to set up our FIE, right? So you'll see that this is mostly the same. So protection and life, protection of life and safeguarding people, that's one key value, right? So there's 5 values, and later on we'll see this. So in engineering, one of our key purposes is, a lot of the times people look up to doctors and say, hey, doctors, they save lives. They have sworn in ethics. They've sworn their lives to a code of ethic where they have to save lives and protect life. Well, engineers as well. Engineers as well. You'll never find engineers who are trying to make something unsafe, right? Okay? Who are deliberately trying to make something unsafe. Right? And they're always, the intention should be to protection of life. There's always should be professionalism, integrity, and competence. Now I want you to be able to note those words down and differentiate between those 3 words. All right? What is the definition of integrity? What is the definition of professionalism? What is the definition of competence? Now, commitment to community well-being. Sustainable management and care for the environment. This is a very new concept, fairly new, but it's still important, all right? When engineers build something, they've got to care for the environment. Nowadays, there is something, if you read the news recently, the Ministry of Environment has advertised that they are now going to go around Fiji and explain how to go about doing engineering impact assessment, EIA, done, all right? Okay, sustaining engineering knowledge. That's part of our engineering thing. So one another point as a professional engineer is that you will not just stop studying, you'll continually, you might not come back to USP, but you might go and attend certain 1-day or 2-day workshops or seminars. So you'll continually do that, at least once or twice a year. So whenever FIE invites you, that's why I've made a point of getting you becoming members of FIE, so that whenever FIE sends an invite, you go and attend those particular sessions. So you are continually doing professional development. They call it CPD, continuing professional development. Okay. Now some obligations of our professional engineers. You've got to be competent. There's got to be public and workplace safety. You've got to think of the community well-being. There's got to be clear communication. An engineer cannot be silent. Now some of these points I'm going through quickly because we've discussed early on. For example, competence. We've discussed competence in our earlier slides. Now there cannot be a conflict of interest. I'll zoom into that later. There has to be confidentiality. There has to be sustainable management and environmental stewardship, right? When you do your design, it's got to be environmentally conscious. There's got to be peer review. The word peer review means you've got to be able to get your work checked by somebody else, another engineer, right? And there's engineering in society. All right. Now, for each of those terms, this is a particular, each slide over here now talks about the definitions of each of those particular obligations or each of those professional engineering obligations, right? Now ethics has to tie in with obligations. If you have some ethics, you're obliged to uphold certain concepts, and those concepts were, as I discussed, competence, public and workplace safety, community well-being, communication, conflicts of interest, and so forth. Now, the easy ones I'm going to skip over for now because we've got quite a few slides to go. Now, competence, as we are aware, I want you to read this later again. Go over this again. I'm going to go through this in the next 20 minutes or so. That you've got an obligation to possess the required level of knowledge, right? Now, public and workplace safety. We've done a whole lecture on public and workplace safety, right? There's an obligation for the engineer to ensure not only the workplace safety, but public safety as well. Remember, before the product gets developed, during and after it has been sold to the client. Community well-being. An engineer, this is something which we haven't discussed yet in our previous lectures. The engineer should endeavor to be fully informed about relevant public policies, community means and perceptions which affect their work. Communication. Now, it is important, remember, for an engineer to be able to speak and communicate clearly. Now, every year I've seen this, especially I saw this with one of my students about 2 years ago. Student was brilliant. He did very well in terms of his calculations. He was a final year student. I was supervising him for his final year project. He was able to write the report well. His calculations, simulation, the hardware, everything was up to date. He was very, very good at, having done the first 4 years of engineering. He would have been a good engineer. The only problem was the student was not confident to communicate. Was not confident, right? So basically, when he was presenting his final presentation, he was looking down. He was not looking at the crowd. He was looking this way at the particular slide, right? And just speaking out that way. And whenever you asked him questions, he would nod his head and, say yes or just smile. But he wouldn't communicate very clearly, right? He wasn't able to speak out and say, sorry, Imran, I think we did our calculations this way, and that's where we found the error, right? Okay, so this particular problem led him. He graduated well. He didn't fail any of his units. He had 34 out of 34 units. He graduated on time. But in the end, because he couldn't communicate clearly, he ended up like a technician. He still is a technician. He hasn't found an engineering level job yet. And this is 3 years down the road. He's like an air conditioning and electrician type of job, right? $3.50 an hour, $4 an hour, right? Whereas his fellow classmates may have started, some of you may start at that level as well, getting $3.50 an hour, $4 an hour, $4.50 an hour. That's okay. You need to build that experience, hands-on experience, get your hands dirty. You need to start sometime, right? Okay, that's okay, that's perfectly fine. But at some point in time, after 6 months, 8 months, or 1 year of getting your hands dirty and doing technician type work, because you've already got a degree and you've got a strong theoretical background, together with your membership of a professional body, maybe FIE in this case, right? So your FIE membership, together with 1 year of technician type experience, you will jump, once FEA, one of the big companies advertise, you will jump to a professional engineering type job, right? Getting 30,000, 25,000, 22,000, so forth, right? Okay, so there's a 1 year of hands-on, you know, like apprenticeship type of catch-up time, but you will eventually jump. But this guy here, he was stuck. He's still stuck at that low-level job. Why? Because he's not able to communicate clearly, right? He knows the knowledge is there. So you can say that, yes, he is competent. He is competent, right? He upholds competence. Public and workplace safety is there, right? But he's not able to communicate. So communication is listening, speaking, reading, writing, right? And being confident to say something, pointing out, sorry, Mr. Supervisor, but shouldn't we do it like this? Wouldn't we just do it that way over there? Doesn't matter if it's a stupid question, right? Just be honest and say, hey, sorry, Mr. Supervisor, I'm a bit confused, but shouldn't we be fitting this in this way over here? We did it like that over there. Okay, so please be confident in your communications. Now this is another important one. Conflict of interest. When we speak about conflict of interest, what we have is, this is a very important point. If you are given, let me give you an example. A conflict of interest occurs when you have a professional conflict with a client whose interests clash with yours, right? So, for example, you're working on a project, and some people are working on a project, and let's say your best friend or your brother or your family member, he was the engineer in charge, and there was a workplace accident. There was a workplace accident, and remember, if your best friend was the engineer in charge, what is one of the obligations he's got? He's got an obligation to workplace safety. And basically, when the commission of inquiry was taking place for that particular workplace accident, not to your best friend did not get injured, he was the engineer in charge, some other technician got injured, and when the commission of inquiry was taking place, the court invites you as an independent engineer to give your opinion, right? Now, where is the conflict of interest here, right? Sometimes, especially over here in the Pacific, there is always a conflict of interest. People, on one hand, you have an obligation to be honest. Remember, what is another obligation of you? What is another quality of your thing? This all ties in. One of the qualities is that there is integrity. Remember the word integrity over here. You must have integrity. So if the judge or the commission of inquiry is asking you some questions, did this so-and-so engineer have enough safety measures in place? You have a conflict of interest. On one side of the story, you have an obligation to integrity. As a professional engineer, you must show integrity and give the correct answer and say, no, enough safety measures were not taken. On the other hand, you have a personal obligation to your friend. You want to help him out, right? You want to help him out, and you know that if in the court case or in the commission of inquiry, you give an honest answer, your friend will get terminated and will be in serious trouble, right? And that will affect your relationship with your friend. So what happens there? You've got a conflict of interest. On one hand, you've got a conflict towards your best friend. On the other hand, you've got an obligation to maintain a relationship with your best friend. Because remember, relationships also matter. Relationships also carry weight. Okay, you've got to build relationships, and that's why. How do you build relationships? Not from Facebook, right? You build relationships from networking, right? In professional engineering, you build relationships from networking. You meet people. You introduce yourself, right? A lot of times people, when it comes to networking, you'll see some students over there. I saw this in the previous year's function, some FIE, some of our, because I've been doing this FIE project assignment for a while now. So when there's an FIE function, what do the students do? They stand in the corner with their glass of drink and their snacks, and they don't want to mix around. No. When you want to network, you go and meet, you shake hands, you introduce yourself, and you say, oh, you talk about each other's projects, and just ask them, hey, which project are you guys working on? Anything interesting going on right now? You ask them, right? So that's how you network. Okay, now, relationships also matter. So you might have you have got conflict of interest. So what do you do in that particular situation? Generally, in that particular situation, it is best for you to tell the Commission of Inquiry, sorry, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Judge, I know this person personally and he's one of my close friends. I have got a conflict of interest. You have to declare a conflict of interest, all right? Because what happens is that later on, if let us say you give an honest opinion and your friend gets found not guilty, those guys there, the injured technician's family, will find out that you are a close friend of your friend, right? Okay, of the accused, you are a close friend of the accused. Then they'll say, hey, this guy had a conflict of interest and he did not declare it. And he did not declare it. So you must always declare a conflict of interest. So the judge might say, oh, sorry, if you've got a conflict of interest, I will excuse you. We will have to look for another professional engineer to give a professional opinion about the safety measures taken. Or he might say, he might guide you, he might say, okay, I'll ask you this question. On a step-by-step basis, please make sure that your obligation towards your friendship does not come in the way. You could still say, sorry, I don't want to be involved in this particular proceedings because I value my relationship with my best friend. I'm sorry, I apologize, if you could excuse me. And they'll excuse you, right? So you must always declare conflict of interest. Another conflict of interest is common. On one end, let's say you are getting paid $4.50 an hour, and somebody comes and says, hey, can you guys do something over here and, put a cheaper kind of fuse over here to save us cost, right? You've got to, and we'll give you $100, we'll give you $100 under the table. That's corruption, actually. That's not conflict of interest. That's corruption, right? Do not confuse corruption and bribery with conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is professional because there's nothing wrong in you having a best friend relationship with the accused, right? There's nothing wrong in that. That's legitimate. You having a professional obligation to have integrity, that's also legitimate. Okay, so the codes so have a read through this over here. Now another important point is confidentiality. Whatever diagrams you do, whatever designs and things you do, they are confidential. You can't go and openly disclose. You can mention, hey, what project are you working on? Oh, I'm working on the new civil engineering building for USP. Oh, I'm working on doing the rewiring of the USP library. That's okay. But to show the actual diagrams, the calculations, the cost figures, that's all confidential. You can reveal, because obviously, one of the things which engineers have, this ties in. A lot of the things tying in today, we are at more like if you look at our lectures, it is like a pyramid. And this lecture is right on the top. It's at the top of the pyramid. So all the things at the bottom are tying in right now. One of the qualities of an engineer, of a professional, is they take ownership of the work. So they will actually advertise, hey, I'm working on the USP library lightning project. Oh, I'm working on the Namosi new Namosi hydro dam project. Or I'm working on, one of my friends is working on, how many of this one, you guys know about this one? Do you know there's a project called the Tina River project? Or something like that. Have you guys from the Solomons heard of this? Is it pronounced Tina River? Yeah. So Tina River, right now, Solomon Islands, which island is that on? Tina River. Guadalcanal or Malaita? Guadalcanal, all right. So right now, Solomon Islands, they're 100% diesel. Maybe one or two resorts might have a bit of solar, but generally 100% diesel. When this project comes into force now, the Tina River project, it's going to be a hydro dam. I think they will jump up to 50 or 60%. Do you guys know the figure? 60% renewable. From zero, they'll jump to 60%. And that will save them that amount of money which is going into diesel, they will save, it will come from renewable energy. The main thing they're going to do is, they're going to prevent the trees from being cut down. So if there's a large amount of deforestation, people don't know this. Like for hydro to work, within 100-kilometer radius, you've got to have thick forest cover. Then only will you have enough precipitation to have a lot of cloud cover and then rainfall in your catchment area. You can't just go and build a dam where there is no forest. There's got to be huge amount of forest cover, rainforest cover, right? So there's forest gives off precipitation, right? We perspire, those guys perspire, the trees perspire as well. That forms cloud cover, that rains in the catchment area, that rain trickles from little thing into creeks, the creeks go into bigger river, and then there's a dam, right? And if you cut all that forest down, even if you do that over here in Monosavu, that's it. There'll be no, that's one of the reasons why the water level at Monosavu is generally lower nowadays, because there's been a lot of deforestation on VT level, right?